Hello everybody and welcome to this time lapse. The color on my cameras, it kind of blued everything out, but at the end I'll put up a photograph so you can actually see what the finished pastel painting actually looked like. So sorry, the color in this one's a little bit off, which is a bit annoying. But anyway, I got the reference photograph from Wendy Hodgkins Corniquet from Free Reference Photo for Artists. I just fell in love with this because something about it reminded me of the Tudors. It's probably the coloring as well as that kind of late medieval style rose at the bottom there. So I've just called it a Tudor style box. I just want to call it a Tudor box, but obviously it's not a Tudor box. So just laying in a dark background there, used my grey 13 from Unison, my trusty grey I use all the time, as well as some nice dark browns. You can see this is more how it should look. It's not as blue. So you can see that background's got a lot more like reddy brown in it. This is true to colour. Sorry, so unfortunately it goes in and out of terrible camera lighting. Anyway, let's talk a little bit about the paper. So I'm using the wine color from Pastelmat. It's quite small. It's only 17 centimeters squared. So quite dinky. That's why I'm using quite a lot of my pastel pencils. I use the pastel pencils a lot just to lay in kind of like my first layer, and then often I'll come back over with my pastel sticks because they lay down a lot more pigment. I'll also use some iridescent colors from Sennelier. Now, I've used quite a few iridescents this month because I've done quite a few still lives that have gold in the vases. And only this month have I realized the perfect way to use iridescents because unfortunately, due to the quality of the mica or the glitter particles, it can tend to get everywhere in the painting. And I don't usually use a fixative because it usually changes the color of the pastels. But I have found a fixative that doesn't do this, and that is the Daler Rowney Colorless Fixative. It's such a fine mist. Don't spray a ton on, just spray once all over your painting, and then you can keep going back with as many layers as you feel necessary. I usually do about 3. But it works a charm. It's such a fine mist. It literally does not change the color. Now, I presume it's not a workable fixative because it doesn't say that on the packaging. And it just says to spray in right layers. So I was a little bit confused if I could use it as a workable fixative or not, but I decided not to. So I only use that fixative once I've actually finished the painting. And like I said, it doesn't change the colors, and it helps that pigment stick on better to the paper. It really does fix it more into place. Now, obviously, if someone takes their shoulder and really gives it a good rub, it's going to smear, right? But it does definitely help little particles from falling off. So you can see I've been using a whole bunch of reds and red pinks to try and get that beautiful, vibrant tomato reddy color. Now, these raspberries. I would not do my raspberries the same way now that I've done these. So I did this painting about 6 months ago, but I only got around to actually releasing now. I actually forgot I had this in the archive. And it was funny looking back on the footage because I created some real-time parts for everyone on Patreon. And I was like, why on earth did I do my raspberries that way? It's interesting how as time progresses, you do things a different way, isn't it? I would never approach the raspberries like this. But I did this is how I did it. This was the first time doing raspberries. And I just used a mixture of reds. I mean, they still worked. They looked fine. But what I would do now instead is I would rather block them in one color and then darken or lighten in certain areas. But you can see I kind of dotted pigment round for each individual raspberry pip. Are they called pips? I don't know. But the individual bubbles you get on a raspberry. That's what I was doing. Where now I would paint it more as one shape. and darken where I need to, like I said, and lighten where I need to. So it was just interesting how we progress as artists. And I've done some recent raspberries, and I do think they look better now. I will be releasing footage so you can have a look. So this is an oldie. This is done 6 months ago, but I will release some raspberries which were done, 3 weeks ago. So I really enjoy pasteling man-made objects like boxes, ceramics, vases, glass, teapots. I just find it so enjoyable. I think because it's quite easy, where painting something like a flower, I find very challenging. I find Mother Nature is just so incredible at her work that it's really quite tricky to get those details. And as I've said several times, I really feel like my floral art needs a lot of practice. But when it comes to boxes and glass and vases, it doesn't take that much to get it to look quite impressive. You've got to get your shape in correct, and perspective needs to be correct. Those are quite important when it comes to painting man-made structures. Because if the perspective's a bit off, or my lines are all wonky, it's going to let the whole painting down. So you do need to pay special attention to edges, where the glass stops or where the box stops and ends, and like I said, the perspective. So as you can see, I've been using quite a few pastel pencils just because this is quite small. I've got quite a lot of detail in there for something that's probably the whole size of my hand. So the pastel sticks come in a treat because you can build and layer them up, which I'm doing here. And you can get nice sharp edges, so it's actually perfect. So you can see I'm used a lot of pastel pencils to create this little flower motif. I said there were roses. I don't know, they could be like open single petal roses, I don't know. But using a lot of Caran Dache. I love Caran Dache as a brand because they've got such interesting colors, their pastel pencils. Okay, this is a really bad camera angle too. Let's hope I've improved my camera skills because this is not so great. Anyway, going onto the wooden table, I have a standard classic box of pastels that I use for wood. And that is Unison Natural Earth. I have all 18 colors and they are so useful. You've got orange reds, orange reddy browns, you've got more muted grey sort of browns, you've got yellow browns in there, and there's something about them just works so well to capture the right color for wood. So I mainly used those when it came to the wooden table, which is what I always use. And then now I've zoomed you in a little bit more so you can see this is sitting on like a little linen piece of cloth. So just adding that in. I also really enjoy painting fabric. Not as the main thing, but just as an added element to the composition. I think it's really fun. And yeah, I do enjoy adding fabric, using my lights and darks to create the shadows and the texture of the fabric. You can see I'm using a lot of pastel pencils in here as well as my little paper stump parts of the painting where my finger's just too big to smudge in and create a soft edge. I'll use a paper stump, really, really useful, or a tortillon as they're also called. And then just finishing up these last 3 raspberries. Now, if you want to pack a punch with color, the brand I go to is Sennelier. They just got the most beautiful, saturated, intense colors. So most of these strawberries were painted with Sennelier. So adding in the light now into the table, and this was actually a Sennelier from the portrait set. You can see just by adding this bright orange, it does say to us, oh, the light is actually shining right on there. It's so simple, just using, your darks, your midtones, and then your lights to create that depth in the paintings and to create that realism. So anyway, this is up on my Patreon in real time, as well as a lot of other still lives that I have uploaded on there. So if you'd like to check me out on there, I shall leave a link in the description down below. But I'm going to leave you here now, and I shall see you next time. Thanks for watching.